Our first speaker today barely needs an introduction. You probably all already know him. Wayne is an animal rights lawyer, former faculty member of Northwest School of Law, and co-founder of the Simple Heart Initiative. He's led teams that have investigated and rescued animals from factory farms, slaughterhouses, and other entities across the globe, and has organized successful campaigns to ban fur in San Francisco and California. He's served as lead counsel, and sometimes defendant, in 5 right-to-rescue trials in which activists were prosecuted after being charged for giving aid to sick and dying animals, garnering media attention from the New York Times. You might also recognize him from the recent rescue out in Ridglan, or Madison, Wisconsin. Wayne was one of the lead organizers for that action. Many of the people in this room might have been there. Who's to say? But Wayne successfully orchestrated that, and now we are getting those dogs out. We have one of these dogs over here right now, if everybody wants to say hi. Just a tangible reminder of who we fight for. So as our first talk, Wayne.
Thanks to everyone, and to John, to Pua, to Alexandra Paul, who was the one who actually carried Pua out. And it's pretty fucking mind-blowing. But just a month and a half ago, she was in a cage, and she had never been outside. And now she gets to hang out with her dad, with all the amazing people in this room, and see the sun and drink coffee too, apparently. So maybe she shouldn't do that. Yeah, so I am really excited and honored to be here, because this coalition has been crucial to the successes we've had over the last couple of years. Back in March of 2024, a lot of people thought the movement for open rescue was dying. And frankly, I was one of those people. I was very concerned. And part of the reason this revitalized was because I met Mark and Lauren through Aiden. I met Trey through Jeremy. And we organized a big conference in March where we actually did a simulated open rescue. And I realized how much this was still exciting people, that this is something we could actually do. And it took a year from that initial March conference. It was actually in DC, not far from here, to actually realizing the vision, but we realized it. We went into Ridglan Farms with 150 people on March 15th. We took 30 dogs out, and maybe most importantly, we kicked up a hornet's nest for vivisection. Millions of people across the country, across the world decided they want to be a part of this, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened on April 18th. But the title of this talk is just what's next. And I mean what's next not just for the dogs at Ridglan. There still are about 500 dogs we need to get out. So there's still work to be done for the Ridglan dogs, but also for the 40,000 dogs that remain trapped in laboratory cages, the 100,000 plus animals, including dogs, cats, pigs, ferrets, large animals used in vivisection in the United States, and the plausibly 100 million, including rats and mice, even insects that are used in experiments across the country, and many more across the world. And I want to start with some context, just so we situate ourselves in the context and the situation we're in right now, which is that even the animals that we supposedly love the most are treated like this. And I'm going to show you a couple sad images and photos. It's not going to be the worst. We're not going to show you the rabies experiments, the surgical mutilation, but what we're going to show you instead in this short presentation is what happens to every single dog at places like Ridglan Farms. This is footage we shot in 2017 in April. I and John and a few others went to Ridglan Farms and decided to look inside and see for ourselves what was happening to these dogs, and this is what we found. Again, this isn't the worst of the worst. This is just the standard condition for every single dog for 10 years or more of their life. Mother dogs trapped in 2-foot by 4-foot metal cages, never stepping outside, never feeling anything soft, never even seeing the sunlight. And as you can see with this dog, a lot of these animals had serious injuries on their feet. And if you've ever walked on even just like hard rock for a couple moments, it is actually one of the most painful things to experience. You want to get off immediately. These dogs, including this mother dog, all had foot injuries, red inflamed feet, and were walking on this metal wire for 10 years. Not 10 seconds, not 10 days, 10 years. And this was a crime, indisputably. We had multiple attorneys, even criminal law experts at law schools like Harvard Law School, opine on the conditions at Ridglan Farms. There's a statute in Wisconsin that explicitly says if you provide shelter for an animal that's so inadequate, they're engaging in distressed or abnormal behavior, that is a crime. So what did we do? We reported it. We sent all this evidence. We actually got a very distinguished former prosecutor, Bonnie Clapper, who I think a lot of you know. She's got a great Wikipedia page. Check it out because she's done a lot of really badass stuff in her life. But one of the things she's done that's incredibly badass is write criminal referrals for animal rights activists. And so she wrote this incredible opinion for us saying, line by line, going through all the evidence saying Ridglan Farms is indisputably committing crimes. Anyone want to guess how the state responded when we sent this overwhelming evidence from animal law experts, animal welfare experts of criminal abuse at Ridglan Farms? How do you think the state responded? Worse than that. How did they respond in 2018 when we went public with this evidence? They charged us. And not only did they charge us, this is actually a document, I don't think I've shared this publicly before because I actually recently pulled it from Discovery. Partly because there's so many references to terrorism in our Discovery, it's kind of shocking. But in 2018, after this investigation and open rescue came out in The Intercept and many other publications, they started a federal prosecution for domestic terrorism. So let's be clear about this. I was actually just joking with Chris about how a lot of people mock me for being like the kumbaya guy. I'm a Buddhist. I believe in nonviolence. I'm always talking about how we have to love our enemies and all this stuff. We did not even any property damage at Ridglan Farms. We didn't damage a door. We didn't damage a cage. All we did was walk into this place, take some photographs, and take 3 psychotic dogs, including one who was blind and for 2 hours, spinning nonstop, who could not have even been sold. She was so sick and psychotic. No one would have bought this dog for an experiment. All we did was take this blind, psychotic dog to the vet, and they investigated us for domestic terrorism. 2 years after this criminal case began in March 2024, almost to the date, but we went on trial in March 2024. What do you think happened at trial when this trial began in March 2024? Anyone know the history here? Jeremy knows the history. You want to tell the audience, Jeremy, what happened in March 24? You were in the room with me when we found out.
We dropped charges. We were woken up by Chris, I think, saying they dropped the charges.
Chris was downstairs screaming, "Wake up, Wayne, wake up!" And Jeremy and I were like, "What's going on?" We thought maybe there was a raid, maybe there was a fire. Chris was so energetic and loud. Turned out, on the first day of trial, they dismissed the case entirely. And why did they do this? Why did they do this?
They were afraid of me.
They were afraid of Chris Carraway. The truth is, they weren't afraid of Chris. They were afraid of all of us. They're afraid that with exposure, if we actually went to trial and Chris and Steph and the other attorneys in that case, and Jeremy, who was our effective paralegal in that case, drafted him in that job, even though he has no paralegal experience other than the Sonoma trial. I guess he had one case before that. They knew that if people actually found out about beagle puppies, literal beagle puppies, and this is indisputable evidence, were being injected with rabies as the experimenters watched them descend into madness and they were cut open, their brains were vivisected. When they found out and heard that animals were being surgically mutilated without anesthesia, when they found out that thousands of animals were caged in 2-foot by 4-foot metal cages for their entire lives, they would revolt against us and not only acquit us, but to get out there and save the dogs. And that's exactly what happened 2 years later. Partly because of the attention driven by this case, so many people started reaching out to us, emailing us, calling us, saying, "We heard about this case from your trial. This is atrocious. This has to stop." And we said, "Let's go stop it." And that's exactly what we did in March of 2026. But there's an untold story here, which is we had a very important secret weapon because it wasn't just the lawyers, it wasn't just the media attention, it wasn't just the boldness of a couple people like myself. There's something else that really drove success in this project. Any guesses to what I see our secret weapon as being? What do you think, Dave? What was the secret weapon? Not quite, close. A lot of people might have thought it was public support, and public support has been turning for us. So the Gallup poll has done a poll of about 30 moral issues over the last 20 years, And they found consistently, and this is actually very rare because moral change like this doesn't happen in most issues. Gun control, abortion, most issues, it's very static. It's really hard to create change. Last 50 years, we've gone from almost 70% support for animal testing to now less than 50%. And that's animal testing, not testing on dogs. Right? This is a linear graph moving to the point that if we keep making the same progress over the next 20 years that we made in the last 20, vivisection is going to be gone. But this isn't actually our secret weapon. It also wasn't powerful people, although powerful people have also been turning. So this is just, I think, a couple weeks before the Ridglan rescue on March 15th. Secretary Kennedy, the most powerful man in vivisection, he funds more animal experimentation at the NIH and Health and Human Services than any human being on this planet. $14 billion every year goes into animal experimentation because of this guy. And he said he wants to end animal testing. But this wasn't our secret weapon. Our secret weapon was this. Hundreds of people, 500 in total, who signed up and said, I don't care how many people they try to put in prison. They try to put you in prison. We don't care. I don't care how many people they try to sue. They sued even former employees. They sued Dane for dogs merely for writing letters. I don't care about any of that. If you torture dogs, we are going to stop it. And that's exactly what these people did. Our secret weapon was the grassroots, was people. And that is why summits like this are so important, because I guarantee you, if we were only able to recruit, and John will tell you the same, if we were only able to recruit the same 6 people we had in 2017, we probably would have just gone back on trial and gone to prison. But the difference between April of 2017 and March of 2026 was not me or John or the others who initially went into Ridglan. It was you. It was the fact that 500 people signed up and 150 people walked into Ridglan Farms on March 15th. But accompanying this incredible weapon is an incredible threat. And what is our biggest threat? What do you think our biggest threat is? I've been looking at this issue for the last 20 years, examining not just the animal rights movement, but movements across the world and seeing what causes them to fail. What do you think our biggest threat is? Infighting. Our biggest threat, sadly, is also you. And me, too. As Chris herself has pointed out, I have been guilty. Back in 2016, I was writing, there's Chris. Chris is right. I have been involved in infighting, too. And what infighting does is it kills our most powerful tool, your inspiration. Because all of us have been in a context where the vibes are good, everyone's supporting each other, we love each other, we're all fighting the good fight against the powers that be. And we've all been in situations where instead of fighting the good fight against the powerful, we're fighting each other. And that's a vibe killer. That makes everyone go home. This has to stop. By the way, this is a Gemini photo. This didn't actually happen. You can see the Gemini watermark. I'm going to say a little more about AI, but if you didn't know, whenever Gemini makes a photo, there's a little watermark right here. So granted, you can edit it out. I could have just cropped this photo and you all would have thought it was real, but this didn't actually happen that day. Okay. So, but this isn't just me saying this. I mean, there are a lot of people who say these sorts of things. Chris says this, I said this. A lot of other people say this on all sides of all disputes. This is something that my friend James Osden put together at Social Change Lab. He went to, I believe it was 120 of the world's greatest experts in social movements, people who spent their entire lives just studying what makes things work, what makes things fail, and asked, what are the factors that cause social movements to fail? What do you think the number one thing was? I don't know if you all can read this. Internal conflict or movement infighting. Overwhelmingly, almost all the experts. In fact, only a small percentage of them said it was not important. Virtually everyone, over 90% said it was important to some degree, and this is by far the most important factor causing social movements to fail. So, what are we learning and what do we have to do next? We have to scale. And scale is very important because we got to 150 on March 15th. We got to 1,000 on April 18th. But we have to make scale that doesn't suck. And the thing that sucks more than anything else, when you're fighting for a cause that you believe deeply in, when you believe, and you are actually doing the right thing, is to have the people you should be working with attacking each other or attacking you. This sucks. We've got to stop this. Okay. So this is like the first important thing that's next. We've got to keep scaling up. We have to make sure the scale doesn't suck. And this is a problem because, as you all know, the bigger you get, the more opportunity there are for fights, right? Because we get more people, more political perspectives. We had, for the first time in my history, Lara Trump supporting us in the Ridglan rescue. And I had to figure out how to way to make that scale and not suck, which wasn't easy. I will tell you, as someone who's not the biggest fan of the Trump administration, we still had to welcome her support. But one of the ways we get there is leadership. right? Leadership is super important. This is very clear from the social research that one of the ways you ensure the scale doesn't suck is you got leaders. But who do you think was the key leader of the Ridglan rescue? Who do you think? You. What do you think? Is he right? Yeah. No, he's wrong. Who was the key leader? Us. Right, okay. So this is what everyone thinks. But this is an image that actually is very telling. Does anyone know what this image is of? What happened at the beginning of the Ridglan rescue on April 18th? I was gone. Not only was I not leading, I was sitting in a jail cell. And yet this is what unfolded on that day. And this is a video by Cam Waters, who's not here, but does some incredible video. I'll just play the video. This is what unfolded when I was not there.
Rescue the dog! Rescue the dog! Rescue the dog!
We're going to serve Ridglan Farms with a $35 million lawsuit alleging terroristic threats and violations of constitutional rights.
What is probable cause?
What is the problem? Still looking for some collaboration.
Are you serving the papers or do you want to give them to me?
Our goal is to enforce our rights, but more importantly, enforce the rights of the dogs. Ridglan Farms is a notorious dog breeding experimentation facility. It's been implicated in hundreds of counts of animal cruelty, and to date, the government has refused to do anything to protect the dogs. Over the last few weeks, beyond targeting animals, they've also targeted peaceful activists.
We've been tear gassed, we've been pepper sprayed, but more importantly, there are dogs in there who need our help. Okay?
We're going to be peaceful, nonviolent, act within our rights.
That one's
You have a legal right to be here! You have a legal right! We have been talking to officials for years!
Free the dogs. Free the fucking dogs.
And if the time comes and the opportunity arises, we'll also try to give aid to as many dogs as possible, because many of you know that for weeks now, we have been planning to save all 2,000 of the Ridglan dogs.
That's what it's people shooting bullets at us and tear gas and pepper spray. Please, have some compassion.
The two commitments we're asking for today, above all else, are nonviolence. So go in and say a prayer, think about how much you love animals, think about how much you love each other.
Sir, you need water. You were created in God's image, the image of love, truth, and compassion. Remember who you are.
How much you love your dogs.
I'm here to get a dog out. That's all we want to do. But I don't want this to happen to try to save me.
Does not want Beagles abused to save his life. And yet you're going to pepper spray him and shoot bullets at him.
How much you love even our adversaries. They're all sentient beings, all deserving of respect and kindness.
You can see that this is wrong. Why stand on the wrong side of history? Who are the ones persecuting those who stand on the side of righteousness and truth? It's up to you guys and the press and the rest of the world to come together and stop this madness. But it all comes down to funding for animal research product. It's a shame that it's come down to this, but it's all about money. Federal government needs to shut this down.
So what's really important about this video is I wasn't there. And you had people braving tear gas, running into lines of riot police, being shot at with bullets, a man with terminal cancer, running towards the facility, trying to save dogs from death and torture. And I wasn't there. And frankly, I don't even know most of those people. I don't know that gentleman at the end who's speaking so eloquently about how this is all about money. I don't know the man with terminal cancer. I'm actually trying to make a phone call with him because I want to find out who this guy is and thank him for his leadership on that day. And the key thing is, too often in movements, people see a spokesman like me. I was narrating that film, and Cam picked me. I kind of wish he hadn't, because there are a lot of other people, Jeremy, who could do just as good a job as I did. But I wasn't the leader. I was just the narrator, right? And the hero of the story isn't the narrator. Does anyone know the story, The Odyssey? It's actually kind of in the news right now because of Christopher Nolan. The Odyssey, who's the narrator of The Odyssey? Anyone know? Who's the narrator? Homer. And Homer's a loser. He's just a narrator. He's just like a poet who sings about the things that other people did. That's what I did. I was Homer. There's a reason they named Homer Simpson Homer, because he's not that cool. That was me. I just narrated a film. I sat in a jail cell and narrated a film afterwards. That's it. The people who are the heroes are the people who are actually in the fight. That's Odysseus. That's Achilles. That's the other people who are actually struggling to save the people and animals they love. And that is not me. That is you, right? And again, this is not just me saying this because I'm trying to mobilize you and inspire you to fight. There is extremely solid social scientific research showing that the way movements work is through very robust decentralized ties. Movements that have a hub and spoke network almost always fail because people don't have relationships with each other. They can't have a real relationship with any so-called leader because they just have too many people following them on social media. So like, for example, for me, I apologize if you send me a message on Instagram. I really would love to reach out to everyone who writes to me, but it's hard in a hub and spoke model, right? And there's very little actual redundancy in social connections. So if someone is suffering in a hub and spoke model, like this guy right here, if he needs some help and I've got 100 other people I'm connected to, it's really hard for me to give him the support he needs. But in contrast, if you have a dense and decentralized network like this, a web, rather than a hub and spoke, there's a lot of social redundancy, so people get support from a lot of different avenues. There's trust and intimacy. People have real relationships and provides a foundation for cooperation and solidarity. If you haven't read the book, How to Make Big Things Happen, or How to Make Change Happen, Damon Santola, How to Make Change. It's just change. No, change, How to Make Big Things Happen. Change. I'm sorry, I should know the book of the title of the book I'm citing. But it's a great book because it shows you the network science behind this idea, that we need networks and not just hubs and spokes. But there's another actually very interesting example of networks that are driving an enormous amount of social change right now. A technology that's sort of taken over the entire world. And you want to guess what network I'm talking about? AI. What is the basis of AI? Data. But what is the specific technology that's being developed? Neural networks, deep learning neural networks. And what's incredibly interesting about these deep learning networks is they're very decentralized. And maybe most importantly, there's what's called a hidden layer. So the difference between deep learning, these neural networks that ChatGPT is using, Claude is using, and traditional models of machine learning that have been used for decades before then, is they have deep layers. In fact, they're literally called hidden layers because no one actually sees them. You have the stuff that goes in, the text that you're putting in, you have the output at the end, but there are layers and layers of hidden neurons in the network that are processing, learning, improving over time. And no one even sees this. In fact, even the people who make AI have no idea why this is working because there are sometimes trillions and trillions of these individual neurons throughout the network, and every single one of this is improving. Every single one of them is learning. Every one of them is getting the feedback it needs to be the best neuron it could possibly be. And what is true of neural networks, artificial and human, is also true of social networks. We need AI-trained activist networks. And I mean literally trained by AI, but also we need to cultivate the intelligence and ability of everyone in the entire network, including all these hidden layers. Because the way ChatGPT works its magic isn't just what you see on the inside or what you see on the outside. It's all the hidden layers in between. You are those hidden layers. Okay, so this is point 2. What's next? We need to have the hidden layers improved and take leadership in a way that transforms the world. Okay. Last thing I want to say. This is video footage of one of the dogs from Ridglan Farms. And I said before that there were thousands of dogs we saw, or about 1,000 I should say, who were spinning in cages. This is a dog we saw spinning for about 2 hours. And very sadly, shortly after this footage came out, not only did the authorities prosecute us, but partly because another facility in Vigo, that many of you have probably heard about, shut down, Ridglan actually started expanding its operations. So even in the face of this enormous amount of animal cruelty, the numbers were actually going up. So they tried to put us in prison. The number of animals being used by Ridglan Farms are going up. And frankly, a lot of folks, including folks on the defense team, I actually don't know what John felt. How optimistic were you after 2018? Did you think we were going to shut them down?
Certainly not.
Yeah. So I think most of us were feeling pretty distressed, maybe in a state of despair, right? And the third and maybe most important lesson from Ridglan that we need to carry forward is the importance of optimism. Okay, so here's a very interesting data point that is drawn from the literally most cited book on the civil rights movement in history, written by a guy named Doug McAdam at Stanford. It's called The Political Process in Black Insurgency. That's actually not the exact title. Again, I gotta do a better job of remembering the titles of books, but Doug McAdam, it's like in 1982, he wrote this book about how the civil rights movement won, right? And it's been cited like 10,000 times, literally the most cited book, I think, in the history of the civil rights movement. And in 1963, which was a very hard year, in Birmingham, police dogs attacked activists, there were lynchings, people getting killed on the streets. Just a couple years prior to that, a bunch of, including white people, got murdered during the Freedom Summer, including the cops helping. The cops literally dragged people out of buses and left them with a lynch mob, white and black people, merely for asserting their rights. And anyone want to guess in 1963 what percentage of black Americans thought, you know, racism's going to be worked out. Things are going to be okay. What do you want to guess? I'm kind of giving it away now, but 10%? 5%? 1%? 70%. Even as state repression, mob violence was increasing to historic proportions. Again, all these famous images from Birmingham, those images of kids getting attacked by police dogs, you've probably all seen them in your history books. That was in 1963. Everyone in the nation saw police dogs attacking children, fighting for civil rights. And 70% of black Americans thought, you know what, this racism thing, we're gonna work it out. And that is the power of vision and hope. What Doug McAdam has found, and this is probably the most important diagram from his book, is that it is not enough to have great organizational strength and great political opportunities. It's not enough to have prevailing socioeconomic and political conditions that present an opportunity for the movement. What's actually most important is what he calls cognitive liberation. To free the world, we gotta free ourselves. And that is a question of vision, right? We have to believe that we can achieve what we say we want to achieve. And once that happens, amazing things can happen. And that is exactly how we got 500 people to sign up in March of 2026. How we got 2,000 people to sign up in April of 2026, because we painted a picture that people believed in. And most importantly, this is not my picture, this was yours. And this picture came to life in the last few weeks. These are some of the videos. And these are stories not told by me. These are videos, narratives, photos posted by other people. These are the visions that other people had that came to life after April 18th, 2026.
Locked in a stalemate with men by no.
There's a vision of dogs playing with a toy for the first time in their lives. I heard a lot of people say this. I just saw these dogs trapped in a cage where their only friend was a PVC pipe. I wanted this dog to have a real toy. And this is, again, not a photo taken by me. This is a photo taken by Emily Anderson of one of the dogs rescued on March 15th. And this is my friend Holly. She was on my team. She had her rotator cuff torn by the police. Her friend Liz got smashed in the face and had her nose broken. And this is her just a couple weeks later with one of the puppies who was rescued from Ridglan Farms.
What is that?
You wanna go swim, buddy?
What is that? Oh my god, it's instinct, huh?
Yeah.
I
This is unbelievably cute.
You wanna touch it?
Oh my god!
Cutie.
It's their first time seeing water.
What's that? That is so precious.
You can see how traumatized she is, but she's recovering, right? So what is the lesson of Ridglan? What is next? We have to build this shared vision tenfold, 100-fold. We have to empower all of you to see the horrors in the world, for sure. We should look unblanchingly about the horrific abuses that are inflicting on animals, including shrimp and hens and dogs, all the animals of this earth. But we have to believe we can get them out. We have to believe we can win. We have to engage in a shared vision quest, right? This is just kind of a dorky term I came up with. All right. And it is not just the dogs at Ridglan Farms, because there are still dogs at Ridglan Farms that need to be rescued, but there are also tens of thousands of other dogs across the nation, including at the biggest facility of them all. Marshall Bioresources. And this is whistleblower footage released by an employee at Marshall of what's called inhalation training, where they force these dogs to wear masks so that when the experiment comes and they want to feed this animal toxic gas, sometimes 24/7. And back to the beginnings of the vivisection industry, some of the early experiments involved forcing little beagle puppies to breathe 30 cigarettes a day, to the point that many of them were dying within weeks. And the experimenters would look at their lungs and couldn't even figure out what happened to their lungs because they were so massively damaged from breathing in cigarette smoke constantly. This is the facility. But while it is important for us to acknowledge these abuses and see the horrors that are unfolding at Marshall, at Ridglan, because we still got 500 dogs to get out. It is also important for us to imagine and envision what all those people in the videos I just showed you envisioned when they came to us and joined us on March and April of 26 to get these animals out. So when we look at these barns, and there are about 65,000 animals, not just dogs, but cats, pigs, ferrets, at Marshall, the largest vivisection facility probably in the world. Imagine a different scene where we have thousands of people walking into these buildings, streaming on every one of these fields, at every one of these barns, and walking out with these desperate crying animals brought into the sunlight for the first time. Envision that. That is key. We have to engage in this shared vision quest and realize we can get these animals out. Okay, so what's next? Scale that doesn't suck. We got to keep building, get our numbers up. It is so important that we come out and we come out steadily. It can't just be a one-day thing, a one-week thing. David Coman-Heidi just wrote about how we need to have generational activists. If you don't follow his blog, it's a great blog at the Navigation Fund. We need to see this as a generational fight. We're going to be in this for the next 40 years. And I think we can win in 40 years, but we have to have that level of commitment. And we have to make sure as we scale up, as we recruit all these people, as they're committed, they stick around because the scale doesn't suck because we're nice to each other. We need to have activist networks where we see leadership comes from everyone. And we have to use new technologies to ensure everyone is trained and empowered to be the best activists they can be. And finally, we have to engage in shared vision quests. So with that, and I think I probably went long, I'm going to invite up my co-marshal, Aiden, who was there on March 15th, there on April 18th, and probably worked harder than anyone, including me, to ensure this campaign came to successful outcome. We're going to just have a little bit of a podcast conversation about some of the big remaining questions at Ridglan, and then we'll open things up for questions.
I was glad to see Wayne is already preparing our federal aid of defense. He's like, Your Honor, I couldn't have been the leader. I was already arrested, and all this stuff happened, so it wasn't me. Okay, good.
What do you see as the most important lessons? I mean, you just heard me kind of share what I think should happen next and what we learned. But what are the lessons that you've taken from this?
From the 18th or just in general?
I'd say both.
That was the really obvious question that you were going to ask, and yet I didn't prepare for it. So, I think a lot of the things that are like really object level lessons about the day of the rescue and what, went wrong or what didn't go the way that we thought it was going to go or hoped it was going to go, to me are not the most important things because the outcome was so powerful. And we did have, we had conversations 2 or 3 weeks beforehand where when it started to become clear, okay, I think we actually have a chance to get 1,000, 2,000 people to Ridglan. And there's one of two ways this can go. Either, we're going to have more people than cops and they can't stop us and we can get past them and we can get dogs, or they're going to have to, at the time I was thinking they're going to have to call in the National Guard, or they're going to have to just this massive police response. And it was clear then, well, that would be a win by itself, right? Setting up this confrontation, this really sharp contrast between nonviolent rescuers and, police defending animal abuse. And then, we thought
they had to call out, I think it was 20 different police departments.
Yeah, state troopers, And I think, we thought, all right, then we're going to work really hard on the first plan. We weren't conscious, just as I tried to say, we did not think that, we were going to try to get past police. We're not expecting tear gas. But in hindsight, it's we did, there was a possibility that we would get in and get dogs. And I think it made sense to plan for that and work really hard on that possibility. Because the other possibility, it's just the capacity of our movement, the commitment that people already have to nonviolence, the professionalism, was such that, we could show up and people performed. And I was just a huge shout out to the CAFT crowd, the coalition crowd. The people here who have been participating in pressure campaigns, and I think everyone's gotten a taste of the actions in the last couple of days at the conference. are actually really good preparation, just general preparation for the kind of intensity that we're going to encounter in the field, such that, you know, a lot of the folks in this room were just so solid out in the field. And like,
I heard from so many people the CAF crowd was just like leading the charge and so brave.
Yeah.
That the courage was just unbelievable from the AAC CAF crowd. And it was because of their experiences in protest.
Yeah, and like Wayne got arrested, I got, you know, pepper sprayed, and I was like blind, lying and rolling around in pain in the field for like 45 minutes, and things just kept happening, you know. And I think it was because a lot of the people in this room had just stepped up and showed so much leadership. So it was like, well, yeah, it worked. Like, it worked fundamentally. The vision of, you know, doing these kinds of, like, we're looking at these civil rights actions that, you know, you and I have been inspired by for more than 10 years at this point, and like seeing that actually play out for our movement.
I want to talk about two critiques, because I think even you and I have some disagreement about how much it worked. I mean, obviously, 1,500 animals have come out, partly because a large number of donors, including Lara Trump, after the action said, like, we just need to get these dogs out. We'll do whatever it takes. And they supplied the funds to get these dogs out. But I think I've heard two very important critiques of what happened on April 18th in particular that I think were maybe worth addressing and actually getting your feedback on. One is that we were naive and stupid about the police, and guilty as charged. I will say I was naive and stupid. And there were a lot of people in this room who were like, you're kind of dumb about cops. You think they're going to work with you or like not beat the shit out of you if you guys try to quote unquote steal dogs. It happened. I was wrong about this more than anybody. So that's one critique. You're naive that this open rescue model assumes that these cops are going to work with you when this is a corrupt and broken system. These people are never going to work with you. The second critique I've heard is that we just didn't prepare people as a result. You know, it's not just that you're naive about the system, but partly because of that, you actually endangered activists. And God forbid anyone in this room, did anyone in this room get hurt? Raise your hands. Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, so I mean, I've seen some of Sarah's injuries. They're awful. I think a lot of people may have even been traumatized, and we want to make sure you get the support you need. But how do you respond to these two critiques? One is we're naive about law enforcement and the corrupt nature of the state. And second, as a result of that, we endangered the activists.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think... you correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you didn't really think that police were going to help us empty this building. And like, obviously, I think that's obviously true that you didn't think that, and I didn't think that. And, you know, there's something to be said for like, okay, we, you know, with the preparation point, I mean, the two questions really tie together. Like, I've written, I think subconsciously, part of the reason that I didn't want to lean into preparation, and there were people here who, you know, were saying like, hey, I think pepper spray is a real possibility, tear gas is a real possibility, we should prepare for that. And you think about, okay, what would it look like to prepare for those things? Well, and we talked about this even the night of the 18th out on the steps of the Capitol building. Like, well, do we want to go back the next day? What would it take? We'd go and buy out every store in the area of like gas masks and goggles for pepper spray, but you know, you got rubber bullets flying and you're wearing swim goggles, like, can pop your eye out. So you need a ballistic helmet too to protect you from a brain injury, and now you need to like maybe take some cardboard and some duct tape and like make a shield to protect you from these projectiles. And at that point, you just look like an invading army. Like, you show up to Ridglan wearing gas masks and helmets and shields, and it's like, oh yeah, obviously these people were ready for a fight. They're looking like, of course we have to pepper spray them and tear gas them. Like, they wanted that. And I think it was the right choice to say, like, okay, there's still absolutely ways we could have prepared ourselves. I've thought about, okay, what would have helped me prepare for a face full of pepper spray? Honestly, probably just like trying it, getting pepper sprayed. And I don't know if anyone's like, okay, would you rather I pepper sprayed you beforehand and you had a chance to feel it and practice like taking a shower with your underwear on so you don't, accidentally reactivate it later on, which is a good tip that you should follow that I didn't follow and I regret it. Or, okay, it's like,
it's interesting. There's actually evidence for this though, that like if you look at Canvas, they actually say the biggest thing that deters people from participating in nonviolent direct action is just lack of clarity about what's going to happen. And if you can simulate ahead of time everything they're going to go through, even getting shot by a rubber bullet, they can like, all right, I know what this is. Because the uncertainty is the thing that kills mobilization.
All right, so I'll go pick up some mace from for lunchtime. Anyone want to meet me in here? We'll do a little training.
How about this? If enough people commit to come into Marshall, if we put the call to action out, I'll let Aiden mace me this afternoon. I'm serious. If we can get 100 people to say they're coming to Marshall, if we put the call to action out, Aiden's going to mace me.
I've been looking forward to that for a long time, but I do wonder if there may even be, I might transfer that honor to someone in this room. Maybe I'll have to come up with a prize so that you can. Yeah. No,
I
you
should have
gotta
pulled
get-
my glasses
Yeah.
because I've never been maced. A lot of you have had a more intense experience in animal rights activism than me. And people say I've done a lot of weird, courageous stuff. You guys beat me. I've never been maced or shot at.
Yeah. Anything else from that question? Or?
Yeah, it's so one of the hardest things about these disagreements is, I think, including between us, and I've said this before in other contexts, and this is just true of movements, and this is why decentralized leadership is so important, is that everybody's right in certain contexts, right? So Lincoln has actually done a lot of just like statistical analysis. Sorry to geek out at you, but Lincoln's a software entrepreneur, and he was working with the people who did all this polling internally of our group, and found there are basically 3 groups within our contingent. One group is kind of like Aiden, like, oh, this is awesome. Let's go do this again. This is the best thing I've ever done. And they're just excited. Another group is like, okay, I feel like this was good, and I think leadership made some mistakes, but I understand the mistakes they made, and I still feel good about things. And then there's a third camp, which is about like maybe a fourth to a third of people who are like, no, actually, this is really shitty, and leadership kind of fucked us, and you got to do a better job next time. And so for each of those camps, there is a criticism that rings true or a praise that rings true. And I think part of the difficulty of the grassroots and why handling conflict is so important is because all those things are true for different camps of the people participating in April 18th. And our goal is to find a way to unify everyone in the face of that, right? When you have these 3 very distinct camps, we got to figure out, okay, how do we make sure next time all of you still want to come out? And that's the hard part. So a huge part of what I've been trying to do over the last couple weeks is just figure out how do we integrate all these perspectives? Because there are people like Aiden who are just like, this is the best thing ever. Let's do this again. Let's get beaten up even worse. Like, if you guys don't read Aiden's blog, read it because it's one of the best things in the animal rights movement right now. It's like legit got some of the best strategic analysis. But I think the title of your blog was like, they kicked our asses. It worked. But
no, we got our asses kicked. It worked because it worked for us. It didn't work for them. It worked for us.
That's all right. Yeah, that worked for us. And I think that the key thing for us is, by all means, embracing that theory of change, but then also allowing other folks who don't agree with that theory of change and don't want to participate in that theory of change to have informed consent about what they do in the future. And even to the extent that Aiden's right, making sure we have real conversations so folks can understand what he's right about and what he's wrong about. Because while Aiden's blog is great and legit one of the most strategic blogs I've read, there's a lot of stuff I disagree with. And that's part of the learning process that all of us, like in this big decentralized network, are constantly learning and getting better over time. So I think that's the most important thing, that we continue to learn.
And maybe on the object level for that crowd, I would say like, okay, this was a first. It may look really obvious in hindsight that this was going to happen. And there were certainly some people in the room to whom it was obvious in foresight. And there were people who, one person in particular who I will name Phoenix, who was like so prepared. She had her goggles and she was my, guardian angel out there because she knew that, yeah. So thank you, Phoenix. And yeah, because she saw the evidence and was like, I think I should be prepared for some possibilities here. But, but at the same time, this was a first that something like this has been deployed against nonviolent animal activists in an open rescue context. So, okay, now next time it's 100% that's on the table. And of course, we're all going to think differently about, what that means for preparing for open rescue.
Yeah. So here's another really controversial thing about this action that I didn't talk too much about in this talk, which is that we told everyone we're going to do it. Like, we told the public, we said like, hey, come out, we're going to go to Ridglan and rescue a bunch of dogs. We told the authorities, like I literally got on a phone call with the sheriff of the county and said, hey, we're going to come to Ridglan, take all the dogs, we help us,
And then we showed up and they weren't there and it still worked. And then we went a second time and did that same thing again. It took us 2 times.
Yeah, it took them 2 times. And we even called Ridglan. I called Ridglan and left them a voicemail and said, hey, you got to get those dogs out. If you don't, we're coming and taking them all. So a lot of people in this room are like, what's wrong with you? Are you out of your mind? So let's unpack this a little bit. I mean, when you first heard about this, what was your impression? Did you think that was insane?
Well, okay. I mean, the 15th, you called me in January or whatever. I've not been plugged into the Ridglan campaign much at all, or really at all before that. And I just thought, I mean, look, I've seen you and this team pull this off a bunch of times. So I was, I've just, over 10 years, I've gotten to such a high level of trust with you and the team around you on Open Rescue that I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just like, I've done this before. I'll just like show up. I don't know what the target's going to be. You tell me I'm going to like stay in a house for 3 days without my access to my phone or any internet. I'm like, oh, okay, that's totally normal to me. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then it worked. On the 15th, it was like, hey, great, mission accomplished. I felt great. We got some dogs. I was, feeling really happy. And it was only like, took a couple days for me and I think all of us to realize like, oh, this is like something different is happening this time. Like this is catching on. Laura Trump is talking about it. Like all these people, Tommy Lahren, all these people on the right who, we haven't been able to connect with in the past.
And so many people saying they wanted to come out in Ridglan Farms again.
Yeah, right.
That was the key thing.
I think that was the number that made me go, was the 35,000 people signing up in the space of our first few days saying, like, I want to be part of this campaign, like actively, not just like looking from the sidelines. And the reason I wound up, having to hold the bag for this action was that I was the one going to you in a couple of days and saying like, Wayne, this is different. We have to go back like now. We have to.
Yeah, Aiden was saying like next week.
I would say, yeah, I wanted to go fast. I wanted to 2 or 3 weeks, and you talked me into 5 weeks. And so, it was just like everything about it was new. It was like I 100% knew that it was an experiment. We've never organized on that scale before. We're talking about 2,000 people. It's going to be new people. In the past, we've done, hundreds of people, but they were all people who we knew had been in our bubble for a long time. And building that from scratch. So I knew it was going to be, I did not have very specific expectations. And I trusted that, and I feel, I don't regret trusting that like whatever, we were prepared for enough different possibilities, and we could have done it more gracefully, the getting our asses kicked, but it was 85% of the way there. I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah. And I think there is both a conceptual and a historical reason for that extreme openness. The conceptual reason was partly because of a conversation I'd had with our mutual friend, Dan Kidby, who's really kind of honestly criticized me constantly for being too secretive and not being open enough. They said in the UK, we're going to shut down the biggest horse racing event in the world, and we're telling you now we're doing it. And then they did it, and they got a huge amount of attention. They didn't shut it down permanently. It was just for a couple minutes. But they were on the front page of every single newspaper. They got raided and attacked ahead of time, but they saw it as a huge success. And they said, like, look, it doesn't matter. Like, being open about this is the only way you're going to get all the attention and the people. Because if you're holding this secret, how do you get all these people? You don't realize how many people want to help you stop this horse racing event unless you go out there and tell them you're going to do it. So it's really important to do that. But the other thing is, historically, there was an action in India, the Salt March by Gandhi. You should read about this if you haven't. Just go to the Wikipedia page. Where Gandhi, at the end of this massive march, where they're all going to engage in civil disobedience, just basically back then the British East India Company, which is a horrible monopoly that killed people, it was like tyrannical. One of the worst empires in human history was run by this massive corporation. They were literally murdering people for merely getting salt from the beach. And Gandhi said, we're going to walk across India, gather salt the entire time, then we're going to go to this big salt depot. And he literally said, we're going to raid it. And he used that term. And he wrote this to the Viceroy of India and said, like, we're going to do this unless you stop this. You need to stop hurting our people. If you don't do it, we're just going to go and do it. And it was the most powerful action in the history of anti-imperialism. In fact, it brought down the British Empire. It was probably the most important event, and it was done completely openly. And partly for that reason, they had, I think it was 4,000 people, not many more than what we had, but 4,000 people. So it was very important.
So we have a few questions here along the lines of what you said about infighting. One particular question is, what distinction might you make between infighting and debating important issues and going from unity to struggle to a higher, stronger form of unity?
If I could start that one. I just want to preface by saying that if you are just getting involved, like everything about this weekend, this summit, would have been unthinkable 8 years ago. That really hit me. Like halfway 100%. through Panima's opening talk, I was just like, yeah, okay, it's an opening talk, it's going great. And then I was like, this like could not have happened. I mean, we organized the Animal Liberation Conference starting in the DXE Forum 15, 16 into 2017, the ILC. And I was just like, wow, this talk could not have happened back then. And cause I wouldn't have let it happen. Like I would have not been, so I'm so inspired by the way things have come together. And I feel like it's cool that like the most probably, we probably didn't live up right now to actually processing substantive disagreement between the two of us. But I was hoping to say like the most substantive disagreement in the conference was not between theories of change, but inside of theories of change, looking at one theory of change and asking, how can we do this the best? And I think that's one way I would answer this question is like focus your constructive energy inside. Like if you really believe in a theory of change, focus on doing that the best you can, and focus your like constructive critical energy on inspecting your own theory of change and optimizing it. And just accept at some point, even if there's a theory of change that you just like really don't believe in, it's okay to say that. You can say, listen, I really don't believe in vegan outreach. Like I'm just not inspired by that. I don't think it works. I want to tell you why I don't think this is a good use of your time. And then just like accept there's always going to be a part of the movement that does vegan outreach. You are never going to talk everyone in the movement out of doing vegan outreach. There's some people that are just, that's what they're going to believe in. Be okay with that. Focus on like getting your, I hate to, whatever. I'm not trying to quote a certain person here, but like getting your house in order and just like really, really optimize, be the best version of your theory of change and focus that creative energy there.
Yeah, I just posted in our team leads conversation chat about this, but there's a fundamental difference that organizational psychologists have found between task conflict and interpersonal conflict. And task conflict is actually great. If you're disagreeing about substantive matters and strategy, that's actually a good thing. The problem is when it turns into interpersonal conflict, and the way to tell this is, are people disliking each other? Are they getting to the point where they don't want to be in the same room together? That is when you know things are going wrong. And sometimes task conflict turns into interpersonal conflict. And the key thing is, it's not my job or Aiden's job or Chris's job or Penny's job to make sure things don't turn into interpersonal conflict. It's all of our job. Like all of us have to be there to defend the culture. And if we do that, I think we can have the very good and important conversations we need to have about strategy and not have it devolve into interpersonal sniping.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more. So there have now been 4 rescues or attempted rescues at Ridglan. The first happened years ago. Later, activists doing undercover footage took dogs out. Those both happened with a handful of people. The second to latest one happened with 200 people, and then the latest was 1,000 to 2,000 people. We're clearly moving, we're growing, and these rescues are happening closer and closer to each other. Do you see that momentum continuing? And how do you think your strategy going into these rescues will change as we mobilize more people?
I think that the thing that makes our heart sing as animal advocates more than anything else is getting the animals out. And something Evan Wolfson told me, he's a founder of our organization called Freedom to Marry, probably more responsible for gay marriage than anyone on the planet Earth, is you got to give the people what makes their hearts sing. So that's how movements work, on inspiration. And so for that reason, I always thought that rescue, it's the thing that makes my heart sing. Like it's a thing that when I dream about what I want for the animals, I just want the animals out. There's something about embodying that change. But obviously there's strategic complications, as we saw on April 18th, from trying to scale this up. It's hard to keep things confidential when you want to keep things confidential. And I do see a difference between confidentiality about tactics and like secrecy culture, security culture. I think those are different things. But it's hard to even maintain some degree of confidentiality. And also, one of the biggest critiques of the action is we weren't communicating effectively, partly because we were trying to balance this tension and we didn't do it that well, to be honest. I suspect the future is going to involve a lot more conferences like this, a lot more people who are very experienced. Because if you look at kind of who is in which camp, Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, a lot of these people in Camp 1 were people like Aiden, people like Mark, people like Lauren, people like Chris. Like Chris got pepper sprayed and was like happy about it. She's literally proud about it. I was like, this is amazing. Look at me, I got pepper spray. Part of the reason is because Chris is experienced. Chris has been trained. Chris has come to summits like this and been arrested and attacked and screamed at protests. And so when that happens to Chris at an open rescue, it's not that big of a deal. And she knows how to respond. Well, someone who, and this is literally true, I think over 50% of the people at the action had never even been to a protest, I think. Yeah. A lot of people had never been to a protest. For someone like that, our strategy has failed them if we haven't given them training, which is one of the reasons why, we were not telling people to come to this summit from our group just because it's a great coalition, we want to support our allies. We were doing this selfishly because we need this. Our activists need this too. And I think that is the future. Way more training, and I do think AI is going to be a part of this, because one of the difficulties of training at scale and creating connections at scale is it's really hard to do that unless you have extremely efficient information distribution mechanisms. And I see people shaking their heads. I'd love to hear the critiques about AI, because I have some myself. So put it in the Slido and vote it up, because I would love to talk about AI more.
On the point about training, I obviously am very pro training and building up like the experienced base of our movement. And I think if we are succeeding the way that we want to, my hope is that will always be true, that 50% of the people at a big action like that are brand new. And like that's, to me, that's the key. It is the fact that these are completely normal people, not activists who are out, you know, screaming their voices hoarse in front of a Marriott, which, you know, that's who I am. I can't pretend I'm not that anymore. But like the power of Ridglan is that it's regular people who've just seen something on social media of people like carrying dogs out of this place and be like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. You know, this is like moving me to action for the first time in my life. And like, I look at, you know, the stories of people in the civil rights movement getting their asses kicked. And it's like, that's the point of the story, is that it's normal people just trying to do something basically good and getting their asses kicked. And they're not showing up there with, you know, gas masks and everything. So I think that's always going to be a tension that we are navigating. And I do think we need to learn to navigate it better, but I don't have clarity yet on what the answer is. And another tension that I'll name in the question is like, with Ridglan, I think what set Ridglan apart, besides the fact that it was dogs, and that obviously has more cultural appeal, from past open rescue efforts that we've done that didn't come anywhere close to building this kind of momentum, was the paper trail that was built up in this long campaign against Ridglan, showing over 8 years, multiple investigations in multiple formats, all this effort trying to get, you know, the authorities to act, and them failing to do that, so that by the time we go there, we're like, look, we really have exhausted all of our avenues here. And that's going to take time if we want to recreate that time that we don't fully have to move to Marshall, to move to other targets in, you know, with my weird worldviews about AI. Like, I think, you know, we really need to act very quickly. So how we can, you know, compress that timeline as much as possible while still kind of having that basis to stand on. I think probably the answer to that is that we need to ride the momentum from Ridglan so fast that this feels like one story. And we need to grab the fact that we have Lara Trump, Tomi Lahren, Megyn Kelly, you know, coming out speaking on behalf of like people.
Also some Democrats. Don't forget the Democrats.
Yes, also Mark Pocan and Francesca Hong, like people across the political aisle coming out for people buzzsawing their way into factory farms. Like that's, we need to harness that right now. Yeah. This is a very special moment, and we need to make everything of it.
It was amazing seeing so many people come out. I think this is the largest action I have personally seen where so many people were not vegan. And going off of that, what can we do as an animal rights movement to be more welcoming to non-vegans as we seek to scale our efforts?
Yeah, so this is pretty interesting, but there were some tense moments, to be honest, especially with regard to the first rescue. Someone actually suggested at some point that we should bring, because it was going to be freezing cold at the first rescue. It was freezing cold, but actually the day it was scheduled was even colder. It was going to be like -20 wind chill. This historic blizzard was going to come into Ridglan, and so we went on Sunday rather than Monday, partly because we were trying to avoid this blizzard. And someone recommended wool in our chat. Wool, like a wool sweater. And, you know, I think this person was acting in complete good faith. They were not trying to suggest anything about wool one way or the other, honestly. They were just trying to keep activists warm. And I think there are a lot of circles where there would have been a pylon and people have been like, how dare you do this? Don't you know about wool? Like, go vegan, bro, you know, all that shit. And honestly, all that is legit because look, I've been vegan for 25 years now, 26, 20, 27 years. I believe in veganism. Veganism is amazing. It's done so much good for me. I also know that a lot of people just don't know the things I know, or maybe know the things, but disagree with me on some factory farm issues, but agree with me on animals. Like Lara Trump eats meat. Should we not allow her to say she's going to offer $1 million to save the Ridglan dogs? No. So what we did was from day one, we had a cultural value, which is this is going to be a tent so big it's going to make you a little uncomfortable, and you have to accept that, right? And if you're not uncomfortable, we haven't made the tent big enough. And we also said, like, we had a norm that you got to be cool to each other. And it was a very simple principle. It's like, look, if you're interacting with each other and someone just is not being cool, then intervene. And that's what happened. Like, some people actually did jump on this person's throat. I won't call this person out. And interestingly, this person afterwards said, like, thank you for actually having a good conversation with me, because especially among friends, now that I know what happens in wool, I actually don't want to use wool. I'm withdrawing my suggestion. But it's because we didn't immediately assume bad faith. We said, look, we're all going to be cool. We're going to assume good faith in each other. And by all means, let's have the conversation. We didn't shut it down either. We didn't say, like, you can't talk about wool. Come on. We're all on the same team. Shut up. Like, focus on the dogs. We didn't say that either. We just said, look, we want you to have the conversation. Just be fucking cool with each other. And that's what happened. And we saw that happen on so many different issues, whether it was like Israel-Palestine or veganism or factory farming or abolition versus welfare. There are all these little debates that were happening. We did, I think, a pretty good job. And I asked for your feedback on this. I'm making sure everyone was cool.
Yeah, I think veganism is, noble. Someone who is going to buzzsaw their way into a factory farm while wearing a wool jacket and leather gloves is like more my people than, and a vegan, I hope they're my people too, but like that person is more my people. So like, yeah, whatever. I don't, yeah.
In so many of those people, I've heard this from so many of our team leads, some of those people go vegan very quickly thereafter. Because once we make the space for them and don't shame them as individuals, shame the system as much as you want. Like shame the powerful people responsible for this, but the individuals who just want to help dogs, let's have a Big Ten open the door for them to come in.
Along those lines, we are seeing tremendous momentum for dogs. And part of that is being welcoming to all sorts. Some of the people out on the road at Ridglan were just moms who cared about dogs. And we should have a spot along our side for anyone who comes out and supports our campaigns to help these animals. But with this momentum for dogs, do you see a bridge to farmed animals?
You should answer this. I mean, you've been doing a lot of work with
Ari
on this.
I'm on the record pre-Ridglan being skeptical that I think that people are very accustomed to sorting animals into different categories in their mind, and like there's farmed animals over here and there's wild animals over here who are like beautiful, and then there's pets, and like we treat these groups very differently, and that's fine. Like there's no contradiction in how we're used to thinking of animals this way. So I was skeptical that campaigning for dogs would lead to activists getting more involved in other campaigns, to the public building more compassion for these animals, to legal or political kind of gains for them. Tentatively, I think that I've been proven wrong on that front. I think that especially some of these voices on the right who've come out for Ridglan I've been really amazed to see how much they're explicitly linking their support for the Ridglan rescue to their opposition to the Farm Bill and the Save Our Bacon Act language in the Farm Bill. And so again, a huge, clap for that. In particular, like Tommy Lahren is someone who's been so vocal for both of these issues and has nothing to gain from speaking out on behalf of animals. Like her base, the world that she's in, she's spending capital with her audience to put her neck out and advocate for animals in this way. And so that, to me, I'm actually seeing a window here to, lean into dogs and have, so many people can awaken through their love of dogs to these bigger issues that are happening for animals. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I actually texted Louis Ballard about this, but I was blown away because there's this dude, Jack Posobiec. Do you guys know this guy? I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but he's like a huge MAGA influencer and like very far right, not the sort of person who would actually like me and my family that much because he's not the biggest fan of immigrants. So he's normally like not that sort of guy who shares my shit. And he was like very supportive of the Ridglan stuff. And then I saw him write on social media shortly after in the context of the Save Our Bacon stuff saying factory farming will not survive the social media era. And this is like a dude who's like, I don't think he's ever written about animals before. He certainly doesn't like me on my other political views. And he's saying, directly tying what happens to the dogs to what happens to all these other animals. And I think that is a huge opportunity for the future, for us to take the love that every American, every human being probably has for dogs. And anyways, I feel like this has always been the big question in animal rights. How do we take the compassion people naturally have for some animals and extend to others? Granted, we're not good enough for dogs, as we know from Ridglan and Marshall, but there's a lot of good work to be done.
And just like on the personal level to close it out, like my MVP award for the March action goes to Lincoln Quirk, who's in the audience here, who's behind the live stream camera, because he was like the one person who spotted our way into the buildings was just like failing. Like we were like trying to angle grind through and it just wasn't working. And Lincoln was like the only reason we got in time to get dogs on March 15th. So he gets all that. My MVP.
And he actually told us this for a while before
there was like 10 minutes on the radio.
You guys are
He's
banging
going
at this huge metal door that's reinforced. There's a window that's open right there. Just like, what are you doing? It's just go there.
Yeah, and we ignored him.
I was like, oh, okay. And then we got it.
My MVP for the April action was a woman named Jen Koberstein. She is a experienced dog rescue
Love you, Jen.
person in Minnesota or Wisconsin, sorry, who just like played so many important roles that I'm not even going to describe. And about a week after the action, she, told me that, and by the way, like she kind of pulled me aside at one point while we were now at her property where all the dogs were being released to Big Dog Ranch Rescue from Ridglan. And she pulled me aside one day and was like, by the way, because of all you guys, I've gone vegan as a result of this action. And I was like, I had never wondered whether Jen was vegan. I didn't care whether Jen was vegan. I was like, I was super happy for her, but I was like, I hope you don't feel like you needed to first of all, I'd never cared or thought that you were or not. It just literally the thought never occurred to me. We went through hell together, and I was like, of course, but it's like great for you. I'm so proud of you, but so it has woken her up to all these other issues, and also to me, she's just had so much already proven herself. So anyway, that's what I got.
I will say, we've heard so many stories like this, and I had an experience like this too. My minister in London, who I've never said a word about veganism to, and I'm part of a Unitarian church in London. I'm actually in seminary studying to become a minister myself. I've never said a word to him about animal rights or veganism, but he just saw some of the social media and told me when I was in London recently, I've gone vegan because of this. And again, this is not a farm animal campaign. This is a dog campaign. But it's honestly, I just couldn't deal with all this suffering, and I could see, and there's evidence behind this. There's something about putting your money where your mouth is. So this guy, Joseph Henrich at Harvard, has written about this, but he's written these articles about credibility-enhancing displays. The more you're willing to bear costs, the more people are willing to listen to you. And so the fact, and again, I didn't do much. Most of you bore the cost. But as a result, my minister's now vegan.
It has been amazing seeing the momentum off of our movement from these actions. Just speaking on behalf of AAC, I know that our social media is popping off because of this. We're seeing a lot of people coming into the grassroots movement who are saying, I want to do that. How do I get involved? And we're just hugely thankful for both of you.
We're thankful for you, man. Again, this would not have happened if not AAC. I really believe that if we didn't do that thing in March last year, I don't know, we would have been at Ridgeland in March of 2026.